Yeah, 5 o'clock in the morning, call. Sunday morning, 5 o'clock, or was it?
We're live.
All right, we're early. We should have, City of Hillsborough. Two.
3 minutes early for the first time.
Get better early than late.
All right, I'll sit down. Space is out. Carpet down too?
It smells like it, doesn't it?
It looks clean.
Yeah.
That's all it's needed, but it ain't.
Yeah, they painted it. It's great. I heard.
That's what I forgot.
No SD card.
Hold it out, a copy of file. You got them girls at my arm, Dale? Hello.
Oh, it's recorded anyway, so.
I have a question. So are you in charge of yourself? I mean, are you see your manager or not, or I just kind of
I'm
wondered
kind
that.
of in charge of myself, but
Okay.
he's still kind of the supervisor.
Okay, I just didn't. Something was said at one point and I thought, okay, I thought you were kind of the overall and the. You're not saying yes, sir.
We work together.
Okay.
Work together but separately. Or is that separate, or is that separately together?
We're live.
All right. We will call the Yamhill Water Advisory Committee meeting to order. Get a roll call, please.
Phillips present.
Jensen here.
Jason here.
Adam's here.
Nadeem here.
We have everybody here. We do have Dale with City of Hillsborough, and we'll get to him here in a minute. First off, any public comment before we get started? No public comment?
Right.
Yeah,
My name's Robert Davis. I'm with the Yamhill Neighborhood Association. I'd like to read a council minute, a minutes from a council minutes report dated 5/9/2018 regarding water shortage. Public Works Review, Superintendent Howard, as in Richard. Memo and packet, Superintendent Howard provided his staff report included in packets. And in this meeting, at the last paragraph, under section A, or no, B, sorry, Howard also reported that the city is required to have fire storage and emergency storage for a volume of 1,023,000 gallons. And currently the city has 1 million gallons of storage. Howard is recommending not only upgrading the current infrastructure, but also adding additional reservoir for storage. Howard stated concerns with the possible proposed subdivision, and that's the one that went in with 60 some odd homes in it in the north. With the preliminary estimate of 130 homes with 3 people per home, that amount of growth would shorten the city's water source to the year 2023. So with that said, clear back in 2018, even Richard knew there was a water shortage and growth would be an issue. So what I'm bringing to the Water Commission's memory is the fact that even Richard knew that with additional homes, there would be a water shortage. Clear back in 5/9/2018. That's all I've got right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none. This time I'd like to introduce Dale with the City of Hillsborough. Appreciate Dale being on. It's a privilege of working with Dale during the events of this summer. Appreciated his team and their efforts. So we kind of asked them to be here and talk with us a little bit, thoughts, guidelines, recommendations, where we thought that we might look at a tide line with Hillsborough.
Elaborate on Dale a little bit.
Dale works for the City of Hillsborough. He is their water field supervisor. Is that your title?
Operations coordinator, yes.
So he's their water distribution, all that. Very knowledgeable and provided us a lot of good information this summer. So with that, turn up the volume.
You didn't come out of the speakers at all.
Hello.
Trying to get our technical difficulties going here.
Can you speak and see how we can hear you? Bill?
Hello.
He's only coming out of his laptop.
Is
Are you hearing me all right?
that the control on the speakers here on your panel? Trying to get the volume turned up in the room here.
Sure, sure. I'm trying to remember to unmute myself.
Yeah, you're right.
We also have Casey.
Is there volume control on the speaker sound system?
Nope.
On
We've never had this problem yet, so.
Last time it worked good.
Yes, I have no idea.
Last time it was, everything worked really good. I get mine tomorrow. I do like 2.
yeah.
I'm glad this works.
How about those Kansas City Chiefs? Yes.
I don't do, is that football?
Oh, man, 13 seconds to go. It was an awesome game. Jerry turned it off and I went, that's not what we thought they had lost. And he's like, that's not what we got, there's 13 seconds. Sure enough, they ended up coming back.
Hello, how we doing?
I can hear you on my end, Dale.
Oh, okay, just, we also have Casey and Eric. Eric is our engineering
Trying to
manager.
get our volume turned up here, Dale.
Sure thing, sure thing. Casey is our program coordinator and he'll be knowledgeable about the agreements and things like that. And Eric will, you know, of course, he's our engineering.
He maps his out.
Yeah, he's back.
If that helps.
Doesn't have to.
I know, but. Difficulties at every turn. Yeah, seems to be.
If I remember right, John, are you the public works superintendent coordinator?
Yeah, I'm the city's contract engineer with AKS Engineering.
Oh, yeah. Did that leak on that 6-inch? Did you guys, were you able to get in there and get that? The second one that we started on?
I wasn't involved in that particular project. We'd have to ask Jason. He's the public works supervisor.
How about now, Dale?
Hello, how, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, we found it.
Okay, excellent. We also have Casey Steele and Eric Hemela, and he's our engineer. Is there a way that you can upgrade them to panelists? They're the people you're gonna want to talk to. I am just a talking head. They're the important people.
Are they on or?
They can see me and hear me, but they can't, they're nowhere on the screen, so.
Didn't you allow? Didn't
I
you?
believe they're joined as panelists. I think is the issue. They're just joined as public.
It should be able
We
to-
got audio,
So panelists,
but he wants to have everybody joined as panelists.
no, so you want Eric, right?
Eric, yes, Eric and Casey. Yeah, you'll want to.
Allowed, go to Eric and allow. So there's Eric, who else?
Jason.
Casey, down there at the bottom.
Casey.
All right, we should have at least Eric and Casey in.
I have a mic. I don't have a camera. Well, I have a camera, but my camera is not on, so you guys can't see me.
Oh, As long as we got sound, we're doing good.
And I'm here too. Can you hear me now?
Yep,
Okay, great.
we got you in. Thank you for joining us today. So we appreciate it. I don't know how much we talked several months ago. Since we've talked, we've met with the city of McMinnville, we met with you folks. And looking at it, the better direction for us to head would be to go north with you folks. So that's kind of the recommendation we've made to city council from this committee. Our next step is kind of looking at the layout, what that would look like as far as steps moving forward and what we would need to do, trying to develop a plan of action. So with that, we kind of look to you guys for some guidance and direction and what your thoughts were, recommendations.
Well, I think before you even start thinking about a layout, when we met with Yamhill before, the big point of discussion was, are you looking for an emergency source or a regular source of water? Because either of those could affect the design or the connection point.
I think from committee standpoint, our recommendation to the council is, committee, correct me if I'm wrong, but for a source that we would be blending with our treatment plant. So kind of the thought was bringing a line in, tying in and supplementing what our plant is doing year round. That makes sense?
Yes, and Tacey's probably the best person to talk about what that means then, if that's the direction you would like to go, because they both have their own nuances to how that might be analyzed and approved. Because Tacey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the city of Hillsborough can take on a wholesale customer without approval of the JWC, correct?
That's correct. In our IGA, JWC IGA, it does state that to take on a wholesale customer, it has to be approved by the JWC board. So what would we would need, it sounds like you have decided to pursue this option. So what I'd need to see first is a letter with the request outlined that we could then present to the JWC and start that process.
Okay. So we need council to make that letter and get that to you.
And if you have an idea of how much water you'd be requesting too, that's very helpful. Helpful to Eric's group with the engineering group, but it's also helpful to when we go to the board and talk about what your request is.
So kind of give you a heads up. Our plant, our water rights, we could run about 440 gallons a minute. Right, Jason? Through our plant. So if we're running 24/7, we're a little over 600,000 a day. I can tell you this summer during the heat of everything, we were pushing 450,000 gallons a day until we went to restrictions.
So that's your peak for about 450,000 gallons per day would be a peak.
That was during the hot time of July, August.
Okay. Another thing that would help is if you put in your letter that this is a hardship case, that you're facing a situation where you don't have enough water. That helps
Is there a template-
as well.
Is there a template for that letter? So we cover everything in one try?
I could provide a template if that would be helpful to you.
That would be great if you could.
Okay.
If you want, just send it to me. I think Dale's got my email.
Sure, and then I could say this is what you should fill in here and here. Yeah, that would help make your case. All right.
Okay. So that sounds like our next step. What would you recommend after that? Just trying to get a rough game plan and get we're at the 100,000 foot level.
Well, I think when we met before, we talked about potential connection locations, and it sounded like the optimum choice from Yamhill's perspective was the Mount Richmond Road intersection with our upper system pipeline. If that's the preferred location, then obviously at that point, Yamhill would need to engage a consultant or someone to provide an analysis of what size pipeline you would need, whether there would be need to be any pumping, and look at an actual route for the pipeline alignment.
John, the AKS is on, and I don't know if Kyle, you can pull up Matt. John provided kind of a route map through Mount Richmond, and maybe ask John to.
Yeah, I can screen share the map, guys.
Okay.
I need you to enable screen sharing.
But Kyle, can you enable screen sharing for John?
Yeah, that. Hold on.
Click on John.
There we go, Tyler.
Kyle brought it up. Can you see that, John?
No, we're not seeing that.
Uh,
You have to share it.
Go to John, right, click on John. Make co-host, might let him do it. Yes,
Try that.
I'll let you do it, John.
All right.
There we go.
Okay, so I'll just talk through this high level. We just did a GIS level analysis looking at topography and the route here. So up here in Cherry Grove, we've got Patton Valley Road, Mount Richmond Road. That would be our start point of this pipeline. And then basically following Mount Richmond Road, intertide down here. This is just north of Pike Road, and that would intertie into the city's transmission line, which is between the water treatment plant and the city's reservoirs. Looking at the grade there, there's a pretty significant peak on Mount Richmond there, up above elevation 750. Here we are at the start point of Hillsborough's water system. So elevation 225-ish, and our intertie to Yamhill is here at 300 about. But looking at your service elevation, I mean, your treatment plant up there looks like it's about at elevation 550. So we would certainly anticipate having to pump to get up and over this ridge to get back down to, I'm sorry, to get down to the service elevation for Yamhill. That's really our starting point as we've started to dive into this study.
Any thoughts, Eric or Dale?
It's a lot of elevation.
Sure is. Yeah.
I think probably maybe I heard you mention timeline, and that's probably a good thing to just talk about in general, because there's a lot of layers to this onion. So upon receipt of the request, and Tacey, just jump in if I say something incorrectly, but I think our first step would be to take it to our utilities commission, who oversee the city of Hillsborough water system, for their okay that we could even talk about this. Then we would need to go to the JWC commission. Our utilities commission meets once a month. The JWC commission meets quarterly. And assuming that it was approved by the JWC commission, then of course I would assume we still have to get OHA approval. I don't know if there would be any, if we have to address anything with respect to water rights, moving through basins. I don't think it would be an issue, but I don't want to say it wouldn't be either. And I'm not a water rights specialist, but we have staff that would know. So it's just to get approval. We're probably talking 3 to 6 months, and then I would assume you guys wouldn't want to spend a whole bunch of money on engineering until you have a definitive yay. So then you would need to get, final design and budget so that you could plan your budget. And I'm not sure what your budget cycle is. So I would guess that we could probably know one way or the other within the next 3 to 6 months. Does that sound accurate, Tacey?
Yes, I think so. We would have to get, I could provide the template here in a week or so. And then you need to get that into us to start things rolling for sure. And the hardship works well with the state too. So you would want to work that into, assuming this is, and it does sound like you said your council has approved this. So you are ready to go if it works for us. Is that correct?
Yeah, at our last council meeting, this committee recommended to the council to move forward with the tie line with you folks. And they accepted that recommendation
Okay.
along with some others. And so
Any chance we could get a copy of those minutes just to kind of see what transpired?
sure, I'll work with
Okay.
the city and get a copy of those.
That'd be great.
So
I
Brian,
guess-
just a clarification on that. Council approved evaluating the intertie, right? I mean, I don't want anyone to think that there's funding in place and Yamhill's ready to build this pipeline, a year from today.
Okay, so you're in the evaluation stage. Okay.
Yeah,
Got
we don't have $10 million sitting in the bank account waiting to move tomorrow. We're trying to get all the steps in place. Then we got to start looking at funding,
Right.
how we're gonna fund this.
Yeah, so it's the agreement and concept with Hillsborough as a water provider, then Yamhill doing a programming study to look closer at, what would be the, cost of this line. And then at that point pursuing funding for it.
That makes sense. Yes. Okay. Thank
And-
you.
And I would also assume that, if everything is a go and we start working on an agreement, because of course, attorneys love to have their say on both sides. The agreement probably will take a while to hammer out and make sure everybody's happy and go through the respective councils. And of course, any kind of IGA has to go through Hillsborough City Council as well. And just getting to City Council, there's a couple layers within the city of Hillsborough. So just getting the agreement signed will take a while.
Are there other towns looking to get water from Hillsborough at this time?
They already do.
But well,
Not right now, but there's already others that get water from Hillsborough.
right, so.
We
yeah,
have had conversations also with the city of Banks.
Okay,
And then Forest Grove is going to be building an emergency connection so that if the need arises, they have a larger capacity source of water.
Okay.
So what's the difference between the emergency connection and a continued whatever?
An emergency connection obviously is a different agreement, right? Because it's just in cases of an emergency and it has different operations plans. So if there's an emergency, there's SOPs for who gets called and how much time is needed to respond and how things get turned on. And then the cost structure is different for an emergency connection than a regular wholesale connection.
And emergency agreements by nature, they're a little bit easier because they're just going to be enacted in an emergency situation. Hillsborough has an emergency agreement with Portland to receive water from Portland. And we are also working on an emergency agreement with Tigard to provide water to Tigard. The JWC could provide water to Tigard, which we have done in the past. We actually did provide some water to them last year in an emergency situation. But being a permanent wholesale customer is a little bit of a different animal.
And refresh on, for the emergency, the problem you have there, you would have to flush that line before you could use it, correct, on an emergency. So if you were running no water at all and then tomorrow we need to turn it on, there's a time lag to flush that and get it up to speed. Is that correct?
I think there certainly could be. I mean, I guess it depends on the design and the usage and the elevations. Certainly, if you have a pipe that, you know, you don't like to leave pipes empty. And so if there's a lot of pipe with a lot of water in it, that's been sitting for 6, 8, 12 months, you certainly would want to flush that water before you started serving it to people.
Maybe a bacteria test, which is 24 hours.
And test it, yeah.
So it's probably in best interest to have that flowing a little bit all the time.
Can you restrict the flow? I mean, how much you're taking? I mean, you
Then
have to take.
we're using constantly, so we're not using it emergency, we're using it all the time regardless.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not that hard to flush it and get a bacteria test.
the only advantage running it all the time is it's there right now. You don't have to do all that. And it would extend our plant lifespan further. It wouldn't be running it. Again, it'll all boil down to cost. And that's, you know, we're still waiting on cost for us at the moment for our operations, so.
And also, if you're planning to blend the two waters, you might need to have some sort of a blending study. I mean, you would think that they should be pretty compatible, being both from the same, pretty much the same source, but with the conditions of the pipes and that sort of thing, I would recommend that you'd want to look at that before you just start blending.
Well, an OHA may require it.
Thank you.
What,
I should have known that. Kurt.
can we get like a cost study so we can see what our cost is gonna be if we keep a constant flow as opposed to just emergency?
Yeah. I think once we get to that point there in the contract, there would be a cost. And we have copies of their contracts with the other cities. And their cost is actually cheaper than Minnetonka's.
Yeah, I think that's just some homework that we need to do on our end in evaluating the emergency connection versus a wholesale, and evaluate what the right strategy is for the city.
Connection is gonna be the biggest cost, so
Yeah.
and then you have to have the connection no matter if it's wholesale or if it's emergency.
Yeah.
And with emergency water, you can get an idea of the cost, you know, to ensure, I mean, we do that, but you know, to ensure non-price gouging and all that. You do kind of set a formula is what you do. You set a formula for what that cost would be for emergency water. And it is a bit higher than being just a regular wholesale customer, but it is something that's knowable fairly, you know, at least you know how it would be figured in the case of an emergency. That'd be set up in the agreement.
Sounds like we need to do that letter first, get that over to you guys and the council. Be our next step.
But yeah, I would recommend that as your first step to get these wheels rolling in this and process if you're undergoing this evaluation.
Any questions from the committee?
No, not until we do either.
Casey, the question I would have is, once we start with in the template and start building a game plan, are we having to specify what we're going after, emergency or full-time domestic use? Is that something that's needed and stated?
It would be helpful, but if you're not sure yet, you could say you're in an exploratory stage and you're trying to decide what would work best, but you are interested in some sort of an agreement with the city of Hillsborough, and at least then we could start that rolling and communicate those same things to our boards.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else?
What's the distance of this connection?
5.5 miles.
Is it been considered pumping raw water from Barney Reservoir into the Turner Creek impound area?
You don't have water rights. Can't do that without water rights.
Yeah.
There's no water rights.
We've looked at it at a high level and the run was similar but much more challenging for the routing.
So. Well, we thank you for being on today. We appreciate your input. We look forward to seeing the template. John, did you have any other questions for Hillsborough before we let him go home for the day?
Looks like Dale's got a comment there. Nothing else for me.
A couple things that we would want to discuss is the upper system is an old system. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with it, but that line is from 1950. And there are we're doing our own work in replacing that line and bringing that stuff, that system up to a newer system. And so there are times when that system is down and we have to do some repairs or things like that. And so that's questions you'll want answered, as you're deciding on where you're going to do or what kind of connection you also want, or at least your engineer will want to know that stuff.
Okay.
But Dale, you guys are currently working on a strategy for upgrading that line, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Any
But
idea what you're gonna upgrade it to size wise?
we're not upsizing the line. In fact, we'll probably be going down a bit depending, and we'll need to take that into account if indeed we sign an agreement with you guys. But it's going to take, I mean, once we have a final strategy and prioritization of replacing all 14 miles of that pipeline, it'll probably be a 10 to 14 year effort to replace all that line because it's pretty expensive.
What's the soonest Yam Hill could get water?
Well, I think that really ultimately depends on you guys. So, I mean, if we're talking probably 6 months to a year to be in agreement and have a signed agreement, then ultimately it's the engineering and budgeting for you guys to build your portion of pipeline, and that's probably, that'll probably take 3 to 4 years, honestly, because it's going to be expensive.
Yeah, we're probably, John, you've probably got if everything was a go, right now, we're probably 5 years out. On a good day.
Although
good
they're,
thing-
oh, go ahead, Casey.
Okay, I was just gonna say with the agreements, the good thing is, as you know, we do have wholesale agreements with LA Water and with City of Gas. And so we do have something to model off of. So we wouldn't be starting from scratch. So that helps too, to move the process along when you have something to start with.
I was going to say that, fortunately with all the infrastructure money that's out there, there should be multiple opportunities for Yamhill to secure funding for the project, and maybe there's even some free money out there.
Okay. You guys supply LA Water. LA Water line their one line actually ends about 2 miles from where one of our water districts water lines ends, out on Laughlin Road.
I think they go up Ridge Road.
Yeah, they go up Ridge.
Ridge.
We're not tying into a district.
No,
So,
but our district might have an option.
but I'm just saying if emergency day, we looked at Carlton tying in, where it was right across the street, but that's
That's
not,
into another district.
that was into another, we might have to, that might, if the plant went down today and it's not operational at all, then you're gonna have to do something drastic.
Emergency connections are very helpful. So the more emergency connections you can have with various districts and cities, the better if you can get an agreement in place.
How would that work? Like if you sell to LA and then would it be a sub deal through LA to us kinda if we had to do that like right now?
So the Tigard agreement involves a wheeling agreement through Beaverton because JWC doesn't directly hook to Tigard, but obviously Beaverton is a JWC partner, so there's a wheeling agreement there. And then for us with Portland, same thing. We don't directly connect with Portland, so we have a wheeling agreement with Tualatin Valley Water District to provide emergency water. So what I would think was that you'd do something similar. You might have your emergency agreement with us, and then you'd have a wheeling agreement with LA.
Okay. All right.
Water district that comes up with gas, comes up over Laurelwood or Walby.
LA is another water district.
Comes down also to Ridge Road.
So, anything else from the committee? Questions?
If you do come up with any other questions after this, feel free to email myself, Eric, Dale. We'll be kind of your liaison team here for this.
Okay, well, we appreciate you chiming in with us today and appreciate your input. And I'm sure we'll come up with more questions and want to kind of look at your knowledge and get some direction as we move forward. So thank you.
Yes, you're very
welcome. Anytime.
Yeah, and however it works out, I hope you are able to secure a good water source that'll be a little bit more reliable for you. So,
All right, thank you. Have a
Yes.
good evening.
okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye, Dale.
Well, I have a question, and see you guys down there on the end.
Yeah.
So if we would have had a normal summer year of water, would we have had water restrictions last year?
No.
So was Richard's comment in that meeting before or after you did the study? The book, the Bible thing that you have, it's about,
Master plan?
The master
They're
plan.
done in this book, done in 2018. I'm not sure.
so that was 2016 or 2018?
2018.
So I think that's what got the
May,
master plan.
May of 2018.
Yeah,
And that, I think that's pretty close to where our master plan was done.
started or done, I mean, because it took quite a while to get it done.
I can try to find it.
So, all right,
On that, was the water districts included in that as everybody on that master plan? Okay, because then I have the other, there's two sides to this coin. We keep getting told from, the new building site that, oh, we have plenty of water, that Yamhill's only using 30% of the water. But that's just Yamhill, so I don't understand why they're continuing to use that set of numbers when we're not using that set of numbers. I mean, truly, it's like, we don't want the water districts cut off, but it's like, you can't have it both ways, say that, oh, we have lots of water, but no, we don't have lots of water. Obviously, we're trying to get water from Hillsborough.
But we're trying to come up with a backup plan,
back.
Yeah, it's more of a redundant source, I mean, it's,
so.
At $10 million, okay,
it's tough, but I mean, I believe personally that we need to start thinking regionally,
Oh, of course we do.
to grow, so.
But, let's not start building more houses until we have it set up in 5 years from now. So,
I think our water, I mean, if we had a good normal summer, we would have been fine.
the last 5 summers have gotten hotter and hotter. It's been, last year was the hottest summer, the previous was the hottest, the previous before that was the hottest. So I don't foresee it.
That's the water, we have a snowpack on the hill now, so I mean, it's not melting, it's up there. We're up there.
So, All right, we need to move on. Anything else on the city of Hillsborough?
I
We'll
just,
wait for that letter. I think that's the next step.
Mhm.
Get that, and then we can start.
I should have asked her, but I almost wonder from a hardship case or an emergency case, I wonder if funding's more available. It does sound kind of redundant to ask that, but I mean,
that's a good question.
Well, I
yeah,
think she kind of said that they would be moved forward to, if you put that on there, it's, looked at
yeah.
with different eyes.
And like Eric said, with funding being out there, that was probably
I just saw
in
Aurora.
a sense the way we should go, and just put our back tees and our, just put that on a maintenance program where that pipe's ready to go at a moment's notice.
Well, and I think,
I mean,
I think we need to get our ducks in a row so that when this funding comes out, we're ready. Because a lot of the grants, they want shovel-ready stuff. They want basically all the permits, they want the design. And if we can get all that put together, so when the grants do show up, it makes writing the grant a lot easier and,
Well, and part of that goes right back to determining our cost per gallon of water that to produce, because adding this new system in is gonna cost us money. And we're gonna have to address it in rates, and how much you gotta affect your rates will be predicated on what's costing to operate now.
so with that said, if you guys are ready, we do have what it costs per gallon.
you have,
1.2 cents per gallon, and that is including our fixed cost and our variable cost. So that comes out,
$8 for 1,000 gallons.
that means it cost us 1.2 cents to create 1 gallon of water, all the way to the end of the system. That includes everything. That includes our variable cost, which is chemicals, man hours, labor, and then you have your fixed cost, which is your power.
Really talking about what it costs to supply water unless you talk about infrastructure. Because there's millions of dollars.
That's part of it. That's all part of it. Yeah, this is all broken down. I mean, I worked with OAW, and this is the formula that came up with 1.2 cents per gallon
so it's costing us $48
to make 4,000.
to make 4,000 gallons, and we're charging 52. It was 52.19.
That's a pretty crappy profit margin.
Yeah,
Yeah, also when someone uses 2,000 gallons in a month, they're still paying for 4,000.
Well, yeah, you
That's
got that.
But then you got those that are paying- using more, so, but
I was hoping 10 could be on here.
so you got basically a $4 margin
I was blown away to see that.
to use for maintenance and repair. There's the problem.
That's, yeah, exactly.
One ouch and you.
I mean, if you
combine-
don't, if you don't include maintenance and repair and the cost of water, you can't do it. I mean, it's just like, we gotta come up with millions of dollars for a reservoir. and pipe.
Like I said, I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly, I thought that, like, when I came up with that half a cent, that made more sense. I was like, okay, well, here we are. Like we said, $4.
And costs are going up. Like chemicals are going up daily.
Exactly.
Fuel, equipment, parts.
That's if we can even get people.
I can tell you a set of turnouts went up $667 in 1 month. They're going up again the end of this month.
Jesus Christ.
Boy, that sign could have, that $30-some thousand could have bought a lot of turnouts. On that note, I'm out.
Question, what's the status on dredging the impound area?
Right now, we've looked at that and it's not cost effective.
Well,
What would you
we're
do?
talking 4 to 5 years for supplemental water coming in from Hillsborough or some other source. And that impound area has served us for many years, served us well.
And it will, but we have to fix the capture point so that we're capturing it. When that copper dam washed out in 08, that's really when it affected the city. Because that copper dam captured all of that impound water and directed it to the plant. with that copper dam gone, there's no catch point when you open the impound. It's free flow down the creek.
Yeah, but anything extra that wasn't being used was spilled over. So
But you could adjust that, so that it, and that's what they did in the past. I've talked with all the old water plant guys from back 20 years ago, and they would adjust that outlet on the impound. So when the plant was running, they'd open it just enough, so a little bit was going over the dam, but they were still catching most of that impound water.
20 years ago, they weren't using near as much water, so that's kind of
Yeah.
imbalance.
But with that copper dam gone, there is no way to 100% capture that impound water. We looked at piping that down, and it's 3.5 miles to pipe that impound down to the plant. What was it, about 3 to 4 million, John, to do that, to pipe that down?
Correct, yeah. It was about 3 miles of pipeline.
And you only, right now, we figure we have what?
I think it was like, I'd have to go back to my notes. It was less than a month of peak usage stored in the reservoir, in the impound.
The way it is now. Without cleaning.
Yeah, let me check that because storage is short of what we're allowed to store up there.
So it wasn't really cost benefit. As far
Well, if we don't have any water, I agree, if there's a log jam, it's gonna be helpful. If that's gonna go forward. If it doesn't go forward, what alternatives do we have?
For short term, there's really not a whole lot.
short term, there's not a lot unless, unless we do something like they talked about, deal with them piggybacking off LA, if LA would do it and doing that short tie from LA into the water district and it's coming back.
How long, what are the conditions of the lines in the water district? And how long will that take?
Well, and that's something we gotta look at.
Well, I don't think you're gonna have it by next summer.
No,
Well, we know we won't have it by next summer. That's a given.
And a 2-inch line, is that 2-inch line?
we're 4-inch at our, where you tie into it, we're 4-inch all the way,
Coming back into our system,
yeah.
next down to 2
We have to
inch.
go backwards through our pump house.
I think, I mean, it's better than nothing.
It's a bit better than nothing.
It's not gonna really.
So Brian, help us understand, what makes the impound dredging cost prohibitive?
Just the cost to do it and the storage that you're gonna gain.
And what are you gonna do for water while you're cleaning it? Because you're making muddy water.
Yeah, when you dredge that, you gotta drain it out. And there's a whole time period of when you can do that, when you can't.
And it be in your peak water use time.
And
so-
see, that's where Carlton, they're dredging theirs. They had to buy water from McMinnville because their whole thing is shut down. Their whole plant.
We've drained that before. I've been up there when it was drained and there was just a small creek of water running through and we seem to be doing just fine at that point. So that has been drained down.
When was it drained, Jay?
Pardon?
When was it drained out?
I don't know, 6, 7 years ago.
What time of the year though? Was it July, June?
I don't remember. It was summertime, I think it was.
Well, what we've been led to believe is we can only get into the log jam during July.
Fish stream.
Because of the stream work requirements. And so if they go in and start dredging that, you're right there in July and you're depending on a creek that is seasonal or fluctuating in its volume of output, so.
Well, instead of a pipeline all the way down, how about just a short line going up the stream a ways to capture more water and be able to control what you capture?
You're still not, there's an intake, there's an old intake 800 feet up from where the intake is now.
That intake was abandoned because the hillside kept sloughing off.
And that's where the copper dam was. That's when in '08 during the heavy rains, when we had the high water and floods that washed out. Then we had FEMA in here and look at that, and I don't know where any of that went as far as getting any FEMA help or stuff on that. That was all. I know it's the EOC, I had FEMA in here and they met with the city and I don't know where it went to.
So why did we opt out of looking at MAC for a emergency water?
MAC is 11, a little over 11 miles. Pipe it in and it would not feed to our reservoirs. It would come straight to town. They're
Higher cost too, wasn't it?
Higher cost,
higher cost. The water is
permitting would have been more expensive.
a lot higher. Permitting had been higher.
And the cost of the water itself, Hillsborough was 177 per hundred and McMinnville is 2.4 per hundred.
And we'd have to go down main roads and stuff.
We have to go down main roads, so your cost to install, instead of 10 million, you might be looking at 20.
Yeah.
From an operations standpoint with McMinnville, this is kind of my stand. To blend it would have been tougher because they do use fluoride. We do not.
Oh, we don't.
No.
And also they have a required usage. Clause in their contracts.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So, all right. With that, we'll get back on track. The other items under new business, we talked about look at equipment maintenance standards for the cities and districts. Rick had put out kind of a,
I emailed something I put together to Kyle there just a few minutes ago.
so we kind of, Rick, you kind of want to explain what you did here and what you're,
Okay, what I did was, one of the things that has come up and it created some concerns is each of the districts have their own system. Kathy has her district. There's 9 other of them. You got basically 10 districts in one city, so 11 subsystems feeding into an entire system. Are we all using the same standards, practices, and materials to maintain our lines? We've got emergency breakdowns happen, and guys are out there at night digging holes and trying to patch up their lines. There's got to be a better way for that, and so my concern was, do we have procedures and safe practices and maintenance guidelines that the districts are using? And Kyle's bringing it up over there. And should we standardize that to where all of those subsystems are on the same footing as the city? So when we do hook into somebody like Hillsborough or whatever, we don't blow somebody's line up and throw a bunch of water away or have the same kind of problems until we get there.
So help me understand. We have the water system feeding the city and the 10 outside water districts.
Right.
With the 10 outside water districts, they are going to a master meter per water district, right?
Yes,
And then,
you have a backflow valve there too.
yes, backflow valve, good. So with that said, beyond that master meter and its backflow valve, it goes out to however many people on that district. Through water meters?
Ours are all metered.
Well, that's,
Okay,
the city just sells it to the district. What the district does, their own business.
right, the city's selling the bulk water based on the master meter, correct?
Yes, we pay this, yeah. And
Yeah,
the districts, I'm sure, have all metered water because there's no way you can do your billing
Right.
without a meter.
but the users are in turn paying the
Yes.
water district for the water that they use?
Mhm.
Okay,
And then we pay the city for our usage. of it.
so there is a contract between the water district and the end user.
well, it's the contract is between the districts.
The district.
And then the districts have an agreement for each user.
Well, we don't have a written agreement with each user basically, but
It's the water districts have the contract with the city.
Yes, I understand that, but with regard to the user's responsibility to the water district, is there a contract of agreement which,
Yeah, we have a contract with the city of Yamhill.
which stipulates the repair, the maintenance, any other procedures you might do past that meter? That's the head end of the water district.
As a water district, we have to have a certified water operator. And we go to a full day class for that. And we take care of our leaks, basically. Lately, we've been hiring King and Son to come out if we have a leak. We've had several we fixed this summer. So, but we take care of our own meters and backflow valves and back to the meter, the backflow belongs to the homeowner.
So if I'm understanding this correct, from the beginning of the water district to the end user, the responsibility of the line is with who?
Water district,
Water district, okay.
to the meter. And when
To the
it hits-
meter,
when it hits their meter, they're responsible for it to the house.
from them to the house.
And they have.
It'd be just like the city. The city's responsible to your meter, from your meter to your faucet.
Right.
Your,
We have the same agreement, and we
Same.
try, our line's sometimes a little more challenging to get the meter where you can read it and where it hooks on the main line, because it goes through some
And
fields.
so if you have a new house built someplace along your district, they come to you for a request to tie into the,
no,
No, I tell them no, because we can't have any more users, we're full.
They have to come to the city.
the contract with
No.
the city is limited. So the city sets the contract with the district. So the district, the city's allotted the district, say 20 hookup, 20 users. They cannot go over that.
Ah,
They would have to negotiate a new contract with the city.
with the city.
So that each water district's limited to a certain number of users per that contract that that district has with the city.
Yeah.
So you have some water districts that have 20 users, some that have 10.
Right.
Uh,
So the end users don't have an agreement really with anybody. They're just paying the water district for their water, right?
Yeah, it's just like you pay the city for your water.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna interrupt on that because I just called City Hall on that last Friday. And I said, do the individuals that are within the water district have a contract with the city? Because I wanted to know if the copy of the contract that I have is throughout all the water districts. Each individual homeowner, not individual water district. And I was told each individual homeowner has a contract with the city.
I'm wrong.
No,
Well,
It's with the district.
What the
The contracts. with
that
the-
is not what I was told. And Kim is the one who told me that.
It's with the
It's
districts.
just the districts.
So they're basically, so there's only 10 contracts out there between the city and the water, outside water districts. then?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It might be just with some of our outside users that
No.
are not, okay.
This is every individual homeowner because there was a sale in one of the districts. And I wanted to know if that new homeowner had to sign a contract. And I was told specifically, yes. And this is within one of the water districts. I don't know which one it was.
So let me go one step further. The agreement between the city and the actual water district, one of 10, is negotiated every year.
No.
Once the contract is in force, it stays until such time as you need
We
more.
went through and I found one of our old ones. And can't tell you what year it is because I can't remember. So they don't renew, they'll go through them every year.
I see.
They will amend them when the water rates go up. So when the water rates went up in the city, the contracts with the districts were amended for a rate increase.
I see.
Well, we got a rate increase. We didn't amend the contract. So,
There's probably something that,
yeah.
some kind of informal.
Well, and that's another thing too. I was also told that everybody has the copy of the contract that I had. that I have, which is a recent one, she said within the last couple of years. So everybody has one of those contracts that says for domestic use only. For all the water districts.
No. Never seen it.
And as we talked last time at our meeting, domestic uses, there's a lot involved in that, and it's not just domestic use can include animals.
No, excuse me, bullshit.
That is state law.
Well, that's not farm animals though. It could be
Yes,
your
it
cat
is.
or your dog.
It is. You look at state law, we had the legal on, and they advised us, we had 2 different legals on. And the way that's worded in state law, it's allowed. That's domestic.
Really?
You know, you could call your horse a pet if you wanted.
Yeah. So that's legal. That's out of our hands. That's state law. So,
Well, then whoever it is that's writing the contracts for these outside water districts needs to rethink what they're calling domestic and be a little more specific, because when they advertise homes that you can have livestock and you can grow your own orchard, and we in the city limits are the ones that are suffering for this, there needs to be a little bit of a change so that it applies to everybody equally. Not just us.
that's where you need to take up, go to Salem and take up with your state legislatures and get,
Yeah, it's not just us, it just is the state.
that's above our pay grade.
Yeah, I understand that, but somebody within this, the confines of the city or the city attorney are the ones that are writing these
But
contracts.
you gotta look at too, they're limited to state law. So if state law says that you can only allow this and not that, they can't write the contracts to make changes. They have to follow state law. So if state law says that this is XYZ, you have to abide by that. That's state law. You cannot amend that to be less or more. So again, that's above, that's a Salem legislature issue that would have to be addressed at the Capitol in Salem with your legislatures. That would take a state law change. And that's what we run into, unfortunately, for some small cities, is there's state laws that says you will do X, Y, Z, and we don't have any say on deviating from that. If we tried to deviate from that, the city would be in lawsuits and they would be paying more money because they would lose. Because you can't restrict things that are in state law. So, yeah, as legal told us last week, or at our last meeting, that, yeah, this is state law, this is their definitions, and that's what we have to abide by. Unfortunately, that's what we have to work with.
So here we're stuck with the usage is 4,000 gallons per month.
Yeah.
What about the water district? Have they got any kind of limit on usage?
Well, our limit's not 4,000.
We're not limited.
You're not limited. There's no, that's the base rate. So you can burn 10,000 gallons, you're gonna pay more money, but the city's billing is set up that 4,000 is the minimum.
Okay.
And so you're gonna pay, if you only use 1,000, you're gonna pay for 4,000.
So I guess
I moved it all through the water crisis.
Yeah, and so if you looking at the rate that Jason gave us, you know, and there's been talk, well, we cut off the outside water districts. If you cut those off, your rate just probably tripled for in town overnight. Because we can't, just the ones using water in town cannot afford to pay, they could not operate the plant on that $52 a month.
But, and I'm gonna use me for an example, 1,800 gallons a month. So I'm paying twice for what I'm actually using. actually more than twice. So, and I can say that there are a lot of elderly people in this town that don't use anywhere near the 4,000 gallons. So the city is profiting probably at least 25 bucks a shot for every one of those households that are not using even 2,000 gallons a month for their water. Yes.
They could,
That's a different discussion.
Yeah, but it's still a profit that the city's making. So yes, it's $4 a gallon or for 4,000 gallons or whatever. But in reality, it's more than that because there's a considerable amount of people in town that don't use
and that,
even half of that amount of water.
and that might be a further discussion this committee dives into down the road, looking at, is that 4,000 gallons?
But
Too high?
what it gives the city is that it gives them a base budget number.
The base
correct?
budget.
Give them a fixed set of money.
So is there a gallon usage increase for the outside water districts? In other words, do they have a set amount that they can use up to and then over their rate goes up to?
No,
No, it's what, they pay a flat rate, but
Straight across the board?
their rate's a little higher than the city users.
Yeah. Well, they would have to pay more to the water district, yeah.
yeah, metering. As I don't know about, I can't speak for the rest of the districts, but we take our readings and we don't have, way back when, they used to do that same type of billing system that Yamhill is doing.
Oh.
But then we went back to, we charge so much a meter and then everybody pays the same per 1,000 gallons of water used.
I
So,
see.
so those that we have on our district that are older gentlemen, people, their water rates are lower than the family that's using 10,000.
Oh,
So
really?
we've structured ours different. That's what was our choice to do it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
But I only have 33 meters and I only have 33 people in billing. So,
So something I'd like, I know here, Casey, maybe put on our agenda for another meeting is we look at these rates and maybe we look at restructuring the water rate.
and I would say we need to base some of that off of what others,
We need to look at our cost, but maybe look at if there's a per meter, monthly per meter charge.
yeah.
And then maybe so much, instead of a 4,000 limit, maybe it's for every gallon you pay. I don't know.
That's gonna be a billing nightmare for Kim. I can tell you that much.
Well, they got a third,
John, can you bring up where we're at as far as a city in comparison to other cities, as far as our rate? Do you have that information on hand?
Yeah, give me a minute. I can pull that up. It's not up to date based on where the increases that have happened over the last couple of years that are funding the transmission line, but I'll pull up what it was when the rate study was done.
Okay, Jason, our rates went up here a few years ago. When that water master plan was done, that's when they decided to increase our water rates. We've had a 3% increase every year since then. Plus, last year and this year, we'll have a 17% increase. So technically,
And they also increased the base rate, the 4,000 gallon.
right, that was increased,
They moved it from 3,000 to 4,000.
right?
did it go, I thought it was
I would say it
4,500.
moved it from
No.
6,000 to 4,000.
Yeah, it went down.
It went down.
It went down. And
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, it did.
And looking at this right now, if they had not raised that 17%, they'd be going in the hole every month.
Well, the 17% was to pay for the new water line.
Well,
Supposedly.
Other than that, every 5 years, they review the rates.
Does this price include the new water line?
We hadn't had rates
The transmission
increases for a long
that-
time,
yeah,
other than that when it started at 3%
It
one.
does not include the debt.
No.
So,
didn't even look, yeah.
So I tell you right now, the water is going in the hole every month because it's not paying for that new transmission line.
Yeah, I know, and that's what they said
Yeah.
before. And so they kept increasing our water line, but what is going on with all these SDC charges that you all are getting, not you, but that the city is getting since the 5 subdivisions have been entered, you know, that they've added them in?
So that's the 6, so currently the water SDC fund has 645,000 in it. That's the money that came from the new building.
No, I'm talking about all the other subdivisions that have been built since I've moved in here.
Some of it was used, I'd have to go back and look, some of it was used for the master plan probably, right, John? Some of the
Correct,
SDC.
yeah. It funded the master plan. SDC funds were also used to help pay for the transmission line. Percentage of that
Then
project.
they had the, what, million plus that they got from the timber sale, 250, how much, I don't remember how much it was. But, you know, 90,000 plus went to the police department.
It went for radio upgrades.
Yeah.
That they needed.
250,000 went to the
200,000 went to the fire
fire
department,
department.
so that the city didn't have to spend $500,000 to put in a pump station.
Right.
But I mean, there's been lots of ways that they could have generated and started working on these issues with our water. And it's just, for I don't know how many years, it's been put off and put off and put off.
And that's.
And so here we are sitting with the likelihood of almost 120 homes being built here in a couple of years' time. And now all of a sudden, there's an issue with water that nobody had any idea with years ago, which is,
It was a 20-year drought. I'm not sure what you're saying there because it was exactly 20 years ago, we had a drought and they had to restrict water.
okay, but
So-
that's not the point. The point is that we've
We
had
wouldn't
an
have a water
issue for
issue this
years.
Summer if it wasn't a drought.
But we've had water issues for years. The city has been aware of it, the water department's been aware of it, and they continue to build and don't look at, oh, in 5 years, we're gonna have a water issue because Turner Creek is so, you know, it fluctuates.
So that's what we're doing. We're trying to.
Exactly, but you still wanna build, but you still wanna build 120 homes in this town when we may not have water
That-
next year.
That's for the planning commission, but again, you gotta look at state law.
I don't care about state law. If we don't have the water resource, piss on state law.
State law
And
says,
that's exactly
state law
what it
says
would
if
be.
you can do it, you can do it. So that's, again, you gotta take that to the state. That's above our capacity.
All right, so
Can I ask
we're
you how many leaks were fixed within this water crisis?
We
A
fixed,
lot of my hair.
Yeah, I think we fixed a total of 6.
6?
But major fixes, not just, you know.
I'm
service
just
lines.
wondering, I would think leakage would be something you deal with every year, not just during the water.
Well, yeah, I mean, since.
Anyway-
we came
anyway.
on, yeah, it's been
So
kind
we
of-
were asking John a question, right?
Yeah, I don't know if John has that up yet as far as water rates in
you have
comparison.
the water rates, John?
I'm getting there. I gotta dig through a lot of files to get to this one.
Okay,
So where are we at on our agenda?
did you, anything else, Rick?
Well, I just threw that together as something to consider. Does any of it need to be done? Is anything a must do? I don't know. It's just questions that ran through my mind and I thought I'd throw it out there for everybody to, like, is it something we should be looking at?
Yeah, you have a
I
lot
think
a lot of different age in the lines. Half our lines new, well, new isn't 20 years.
No, this isn't me.
We want to concentrate that on that for our next meeting, kind of dive
Yeah.
into the, kind of
What
review.
I'll do is I'll just send it to everybody in the group and you can kind of kick it around. see
Kind of
if there's
review
something
it.
on this, something that's important to you that we should talk about.
Okay, Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to kind
It's
of,
about an hour and a half of just walking away
Get some
from the
kind of
computer, back and forth,
standardized-
average stuff.
as far as
Yeah, no, yeah.
we're outside.
I-
So we'll get that out to the committee and we can review that for the next meeting. Brings us to old business while John's still looking. Log jam. Jason, did you find out anything from Fish and Wildlife? If there's any issues doing the log jam?
We just started trying to reach out and contact them. Petra asked for that information today. We got it. Our water resources, Joel was out today and he's getting us some contact points that look over our areas. We're moving forward with that.
Are we thinking we're gonna have any issues with that or?
Hard to say until we get what they have to, their input on it. So
So in our 3 water rights agreements, do we have a water right that says we can build a dam?
That's
not
all,
language, no.
that's not in the water rights. That goes through a whole nother department. So you gotta get Fish and Wildlife involved. There's a DEQ. It's not and they're not allowing a lot of dams being built. They're taking
Yeah,
dams
taking
out.
them out, yes.
So we're looking at the log jam as a option that they
Would allow.
would allow,
If,
right,
if-
right, John? Your
Correct.
if they allow it.
thoughts? Yeah. Better chance of that than.
Let's just bring in a couple of beavers and let them do their thing and nobody will touch the beavers.
Oh. After they're finished with their job.
So is this something you're doing, this letter?
yeah, I just kind of wanted to give you guys kind
We'll
of foundation.
talk about this. So here's the water rates. So we're at,
And that's-
Yeah, so this was the presentation that our financial consultant put together in 2018, 17, 18. So this is where the city was before in 2016 compared to other water providers in the area. So it's that 6,000 gallon allowance at 37.56.
So we're actually between Carlton and the next higher city.
Yeah, we'll have it 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Because,
let me jump ahead to where the city landed here.
yeah,
so
because we're at 50, almost $52 a month.
So here's where we're at today, you know,
Well, this is where we're at. This might just be the pre increase. Hang on. I tell you what, I'll pull together this information for the next meeting.
okay, appreciate it, John.
Yep.
'Cause I know Carlton's water rates have gone up with all their,
Everybody's water rates have gone up.
yeah, they've got it. So we're probably at a point we need to look at our water rates and revise them in order to go up. So you're working on the log jam. Hopefully we'll have an answer
Yeah.
shortly. I know, trying to work with Petra, look at funding and how we can get that accomplished for this year. We got the water cost. Again, that water cost, correct me, Jason, it does not include the new transmission line.
Does not, unfortunately, sorry.
So,
You thought you had.
I thought I had it.
so
So what that new transmission line cost us?
was it John?
John would have the exact numbers there.
It was in the $2.5 million range.
So there goes our $4 that we had.
Wow, how cheap.
We need to look at that. Update on grants. I know that the city was awarded the county grant for media filter and for the backwash turbine. And then there was some,
A pump,
And the wastewater treatment case study.
wastewater case study. 197,000. So I know they were awarded that.
So
any
how long
idea
does it
when you
take
get
you-
that money and start work?
No, Jay. I don't have time. Date on that.
So it'll probably, the city would have to do a supplemental budget to do that this budget year. Or else they'll have to wait and start at July 1.
Well, you can do a supplemental budget if it's available.
If they, depending on when it comes available and
Yeah.
but there would be, so you're a couple of months out by the time you do a supplemental, when you get it published in the paper, do your hearing, move forward, you're almost to July. So it all depends on when they get started. With that, Jason, you have an update on our conservation?
Yeah, so like I just passed around, that gives you kind of a exact cost on that. I know it says 90 days out. Tim says we still have a little bit variance in there. There's a little bit of wiggle room in that time frame. I think, you know, after hearing what Tim had to say, I think that's kind of a slam dunk there. I mean, it's a lot of good's gonna come out of it, and there again, going to leaks, you know, it kind of gives us a real baseline of how to attack those and where they're at possibly, so. No, I don't know, I know we've touched on that probably for the last month, so council, it sounded like council approved it last time. Yeah. Start moving ahead, as far as the funding for it, something I'll dig in with Petra and see, and John.
Because I think Tim was saying that this is 100% SDC funding.
Yeah.
But I believe that the water has, we put some extra money in the budget there for contract services. That we need to, but it would be nice if we could do SDCs.
Oh, yeah, that'd be the way to do it.
This and use that extra contract funding to work on that log jam. But,
Are we charging enough for STC? Because I see on the graph, what we charge is a lot less than what
other cities charge a lot more for SDCs.
And so if you want to develop some land, you come where you don't have to pay it.
That would be another thing to look at is along with rates, SDCs.
Yeah, there was a SDC rate update and study done, and I'll forward that as well.
Okay, thanks, John. Were we able to get, where were we at on that water meter that get fixed, calibrated?
Tag gave us a quote, and what was that?
4,000.
4,000 to recalibrate.
And even after that, they said, you're not gonna ever get
You're never gonna
good
be.
total.
Is there a better meter that could go in there so that we could?
I think an inline meter would probably work a lot better.
Yeah, and we did get a quote on the inline meter, and that was 11,000.
Oh.
So, yeah, you see the jump there.
And that's not including the install.
Yeah, that is not including installs.
But if we're gonna do true good leak detection, we almost need a good meter in order to do.
I was gonna say, so correct equipment, Camstrap rep came out and met with us. Everybody other than Kyle was part of this. So now they have a meter that collects vibration. So with that said, it comes up in a graph in a simple app form. So if there is a leak, it will indicate for like 10, well, I take that back, 8 miles. So those meters, if they're put out on that outside area that we have in between the water plant and the reservoir, we could indicate all leaks out there and we'd have it graphed in front of us.
What's the cost on that?
$350 per meter. But after kind of discussing it with Tim, it's a very interactive way of doing it. It's cheap enough that if we place those meters in certain areas, not saying we'd have to buy the bulk of them, we would have real true readings of detection on leak detection. It would give us real live data of whatever we're losing.
Wow.
It's pretty, he said that he would actually get on here anytime that you guys wanted him to. It was a little short notice now, but give you guys kind of a rundown of what these meters do.
We have him next meeting?
Yes, they are phenomenal. Every other, Monroe just did them all in their whole city. He brought up the city and he says, watch this, brings it up and it shows this one had a spike of 3,000 gallons per minute. So they knew exactly where that leak was, real live time. Like they could go right to that area.
So are the meters in line or are their meters going out to the users?
Out to the users.
Okay.
So they're a user's meter, which is higher capturability. So
You don't need to do every one.
you don't have to do every one. That's what I'm saying. We could spread them out and we could get that vibration, you know, from mile 1 to mile 8 and know where that leak is coming from.
7 mile.
Exactly. To me, it was like, well, here we go. And now we're finally, you know, playing with real life data. Instead of just going out there and doing guesswork, leak detection, it's gonna be right there in front of you.
So how big a meter are you talking?
Oh, it's just a 3/4 to 1 inch meter. I mean, you can go
Just a standard meter?
standard meter.
Same as,
So the district cost would be the same for you?
Yep.
Okay,
I mean, we're talking, you know, when we start talking things with these districts, that's another way to go.
sure, I'd be
And that's-
interested.
and I cost it's only $100 more than the meters that we're currently buying.
It's like about $450.
No, it's 350. We're buying meters right now for 250.
Automatic meters or now, or?
Yeah, we're doing the drive-by style hand strap meters. So these are the same in the sense that, yeah, you can drive by and read them. But as I said, I mean, these are gonna give you true water capture ability and put you in the point where your leak is. There's no more guesswork.
So for $3,500, you could cover 10 miles at one meter a mile
Exactly.
and know exactly where
Exactly.
your leak would be.
And on top of that, on kind of a side note, Brian Anderson from Waterous, right? Correct? Waterous. He gave us a data collector that we could use for pressures. So if people are having low pressures on hydrants, things of that nature in certain districts, certain areas of the town, we can start figuring out why and what times these are happening. So there's a lot of tech out there that I think is very affordable. You know, the meters to me were probably the biggest one because I can get on our computer right then and there and know that leaks in between here and here and we can go fix it.
Wow.
So we're not gonna have, you know, losses at the water plant of 100,000 gallons and then we're still out there at 2 o'clock in the morning playing guesswork.
although that one immediately will call our phones.
Yes.
If the leak happens, it'll
Thank you, Kyle.
recognize it and call us.
So are you going to be billing, since it's a water user person and our water, we make our guys pay for meters. Are you gonna pay for them as a city so you have that information?
That would be my plan, yeah. I hopefully I can get some buy-in from the city and they say, yeah, that makes sense. Let's just spend that extra $100
Sure.
per meter and start getting this water capturability down there
Even if
again.
we only
with-
did 5 of them,
Yeah,
that we could spread them out.
like I've stated before, the one area that scares me the most is water plant to reservoir, right? Because there's a lot of unknowns. So there you go.
Stick them out there and see what you find.
And like Kyle said, so just to kind of give you guys an insight, and stop me if I'm wrong at any point of this. With this one that Waterous gave us, it would call our phone immediately. So if we had a drop or a loss anywhere in that pipeline, this one's gonna call our phone immediately. Whereas the water plant, we don't get a call out until we've lost roughly.
It all depends.
Time of
If it's losing out of the clear well until it drops below 5.5 foot, it'll call the, but if it's filling up and losing water, it's gonna take a lot longer to get a call. It's usually if I log on at night and I see, oh, we're losing 1,000 gallons a minute, then that's kind of how it is right now, knowing.
Yeah, so like what he's saying is, he's just hopefully in the right place at the right time to see that water loss, where this is gonna let us know instantly.
How long would it take you to get something like that in play?
Oh, we have it now. They let us demo it, so they said, if you guys like it, there's a cost with it, $8,000, but I don't know.
Where'd you demo it at?
We're gonna put it on one of the air relief vacs out there in
How long do
between
they-
by the reservoir. What's that?
How long do they run?
Forever. I mean, it's just a simple app you keep on your phone.
Oh, I mean,
You're talking about device.
meter.
The
You're
device.
talking about the-
It's, this is a device. It's more data logger device.
Yeah,
I don't know. I guess at least 5-10 years at least, I would think.
yeah, I'd hate to guess. I mean, I really don't know how long they last, but
So it's not associated with the meter?
no, this is not associated with the meter. It is a completely its own device, but not to get too far off on a tangent, I think really the city should start looking at these meters because as we all know, we've all been there, right? Your guesswork out in the field it's a killer. I mean, especially with the curtailments we put in and the water loss we had, so.
So how many meters would you estimate we actually would want to put in to validate the effectiveness? Before we got in deep?
I would think from the plant to the reservoir, I would say 5 would cover good every section and
Yeah, I think Kyle's on, I think,
So 5 of them between,
yep,
and how many miles is that covering?
like 5 miles.
no. 5 times 8,
5 times 8.
because every one of them carries 8 miles. to the
Well,
next
then we
one.
would only need 1. The plant to the reservoir isn't
So if we got, if you
less
had,
than 8 miles.
Well, let's just say if we put 5 meters into play, you're gonna carry
We'll have 1 about every mile. to the
every mile,
reservoir.
yeah,
But they've got a range that's excess of a mile.
yeah, 8 miles. Yeah.
So I would.
It would just be, it would
I
be,
would only play with 2 of them to cover 5 miles if they got an 8-mile range.
Yeah.
Overlap.
yeah, I think it would.
I mean, it's a very affordable,
I think it would dial the location a lot more if you have 1
yeah,
every
yeah.
mile.
Especially out there where you know
They
you've got
cut your,
issues.
Yeah.
your area down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
A finer pinpoint of where it's at.
Guesswork.
Yeah, exactly.
Zero in a little
You
bit
know, it's
more.
only between this mile.
Yeah.
What
So
if,
if, oh, here's 8 miles, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
and like Marcy said, I mean, it definitely narrows down the guesswork with more, obviously.
so if you could do, let's say we did 10, then you could put out there the new transmission line in, but also some strategic ones around town. That way you would almost zero in on every area of the city. So if you had a leak in town, so like when leak starts out here on 47 at 2 in the morning and nobody calls you until 5, well, after it's been running for 3 or 4 hours, you would know.
Those ones don't those ones don't call out immediately.
Yeah,
like
but-
other ones.
Yeah, those ones just kind of
You have to
indicate
access it.
where that leak is. This one alarms you.
So do you want the ones that would alarm you?
the alarm ones aren't meters, correct?
No, they are not meters.
What does it, so what's the difference between the two? Got me lost now.
I understand. I kind of went on it all over the place.
That one is what, $3,000. It'll go on an airbag, 2-inch. And that one, if there's a leak happens, it'll call us immediately. The meters are just your standard meter, but we'll replace your customer meter. That one will locate it and let you know, but it doesn't let you know. You have to access it and do a drive-by and collect the data. So that could take a lot longer until you notice it.
How many airbags we have?
6 or 7, but we would only need 1 of those on
Yeah, only
in
one of
between the
these.
plant and the reservoir, because it'll.
Do we have any airbags from the reservoir to town?
Yes. We've got, I don't know how many with the new transmission line. There's several.
If you did one from the treatment plant to the reservoirs and one from the reservoir to town,
It would cover that,
that would give you instant
correct.
Yeah.
call out
on both
if-
sides.
on both sides of your plant.
I'd almost rather put one after the new transmission, because that thing's brand new, I don't see that blowing out. It'd be much better on a hydrant somewhere that would, closer to town, I think.
I mean,
But we can play
whatever,
with
I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
if you had 2 or 3 of those, so you got instant.
That
And
way you're
then,
not losing over.
and then the other ones would be more for fine tuning, dialing into, so you're not spending
Yeah, it's just,
2
you know,
days hiking through the brush trying to locate.
so it's food for thought. I mean, the text there now that we can actually implement it, put it in, I think they're both positive things,
A
so.
combination.
It drives towards conservation.
Exactly.
I'm thinking that if they could present a game plan from Public Works to us, and that we could pass on with maybe our recommendation to council,
Sure.
that, you guys,
Want to sell it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
wanna come up with kind of a game plan, what you'd recommend, which type or both types, and here's why, and here's our placements that we think and why. And then,
Yeah, drive the conservation point.
Yep.
and then we can push it on forward. Makes sense?
So how many miles is it from the farthest end of our water system before it goes out to a district? How far is it from that to the plant itself? 8 miles, 10 miles, 20?
Well, it's not gonna, the reservoir will be a breaking point.
Okay,
It's not gonna go through that.
right.
So from the reservoir to our furthest water district is probably ECM Hill,
Probably.
and that's 6 miles. Roughly.
Wow.
No, I don't, can't be
Well,
six.
because from the reservoir to
How long?
town, how long was that transmission line? John, how long was that transmission line?
John's still on.
He
Hailed.
Well, from the reservoir to town, wasn't that like 3 miles worth of transmission line?
So we're only, I probably.
So maybe 4 or 5 miles?
4 or 5.
So,
I can get on my odometer and drive and check it out.
So you could get away with 3 of those $350 meters to cover that distance.
Yeah, I mean, you could cover that distance, but
But it's gonna make it hard, just as
it's
hard.
gonna make it hard. I mean, it's still like Darcy was saying, like you can narrow it down, you can pinpoint.
Yeah, but
If you're
if you
tighter.
started off with 3, and then you could add another 3.
Yeah, I mean, you
On top
can
of that.
slowly, you know.
But you would only need 2 of your notification units, and they're how much a piece?
8,000.
8,000.
I thought there were 3.
No, they're 8,000.
Oh,
Wow.
I mean,
that's
there,
how he sold me on it. He said-
I said, I think you could put together a plan,
Yeah,
recommendations, and then recommendation where you would put them, maybe why. And,
Yeah, I
I think that would be a selling point.
Yeah, I think that passing that kind of information on some of the districts would be a plus too.
Yeah.
Which I'm trying to get an email for all the districts so that I can fill them in what we're doing, but that's huge. I'm thinking
Oh,
that if you put a couple out our direction, I can figure out where we're losing our.
yeah.
Know who's-
Yeah, we got one leak that we haven't found yet.
Simple too, very
I think
simple.
that kind of comes back, what Rick put out, kind of standardizing what
Performance expectation. basically.
performance and materials and
Cause I know the one water district's got some of that stupid old line in there that's hazardous waste, we take it out of the ground.
there's probably still some wooden,
Water to me.
probably still wooden line around somewhere. Okay, so I think you're working on council for the conservation. And stuff, and we'll work on this other stuff.
So
Anything,
as far as this the conservation, the 24/5, that's already been approved by council, or where are you at with that? I mean, are you still waiting?
The council, we recommended that to council at the last meeting, and the council was in favor to move forward with that.
Send it to legal, right?
They were saying, I think, well, I know they were gonna send our ordinance recommendations to legal. They approved to move forward with that. They're supposed to be working on getting the CIP updated for the log jam, to get that added to that. And hopefully that'll be on council's agenda for this next meeting. Should be, and hopefully that maybe this would be on council's agenda to enter into a contract with OAW for this conservation plan. Would be, I'm guessing that's what you're gonna ask. Yeah. So hopefully that contract will be in the council packet, and they'll be willing, and like I said, I just don't know what the budget is. I think there should be money in contractual services, because we did put.
Yeah. Well, they're good, but they're gonna be watching that because of the legal budget.
Yeah, I know they're legal, they're over in the legal.
They're gonna try to balance that, and take away whatever unnecessary
Yeah,
cushion money might be laying about.
well, yeah, but they can't take out a water fund from general fund they're legal.
You can say that, but they might find a way to do it.
They would have to borrow it.
I'm just saying.
They would have to borrow it, and they have to have a way to pay it back. That's why the budget committee didn't approve them borrowing 100,000 last year or this year. Because they had no means
Well, the
to pay
water
it
budget
back.
doesn't really have what money to give out. Once you
No,
start
I mean,
looking at the numbers.
You start looking at the cost per gallon and what's going out, looks to me like the water is going in the hole every month, but
Well, based on the quick math I did from the numbers we have before, 4,000 gallons in Hillsborough is gonna cost you $70.80. 53.
52. But we're not covering,
I'm just saying that.
I mean, but you look at Carlton, I think Carlton's is over 100.
I think it's $1 a flush.
Wow.
Hey, toilets.
I know that the water district that meets mine from Carlton's side, they're paying $175 minimum. for
Yeah,
their water hookup.
it's, but you know, you look at Carlton's done a lot of upgrades,
Yeah.
and you gotta pay for it. It costs.
The longer we wait, the more it's gonna cost.
And the price is going up every day. So hopefully the council will do this contract with OWA and move forward. Anything else for old business in the committee? I did send out the last 2 minutes.
That's all.
Anybody wanna make a motion to approve those?
Go ahead. Oh, I move that we approve the meetings of the past minutes of the past meetings.
Second.
Discussion, vote please.
Yes, aye.
Aye.
Jensen, aye.
Adams, aye.
Thank you. One other thing I'll bring up, and then we'll in here. Do we want to continue these meetings every 2 weeks, or are we at a point that monthly would be? I kind of think we've kind of overloaded the city council pretty rapidly with
That's okay.
a list of things to do, and they're,
Well, we've addressed the time sensitive issues that started us on the 2-week plan, right?
yeah.
So are we 2 weeks before would that be before the next council meeting? or-
So my thought is if we met at the end of the month of each month, so council meeting is
Second Wednesday.
is the second Wednesday. So we would meet after council, so our meeting would be like today, so we'd have 2 weeks to get our stuff over to council, so, and out in the packet.
Not the next day.
Yeah, right now they're the packet's already out. We meet, we make recommendations. It's not getting into the council packet because they're meeting the next evening.
Sure.
So I guess maybe let's entertain a motion that we go to once a month meetings on the
I make,
fourth Tuesday of. That
we're
we're
gonna have to write this down so I can remember. I make a motion that we move our 2 weekly meetings scheduled to a 1 meeting per month on the fourth Tuesday of each month
at 3 o'clock.
at 3 o'clock.
Second. I need some mess on that.
Any discussion? Vote please.
Kathy, I.
Ulrich, aye.
All right.
Jensen, I.
Adam's eye.
Seventeen, I.
All right, so we will move to, so we won't meet again until the end of February.
My calendar's not. full.
We'll send out
22nd.
Thank you.
22nd of February. That way,
Right after President's Day, I like that.
is there anything that we want to pass on to council at their next council meeting, or we just,
I think they probably got their hands full, don't they?
do we want to just give them an update that we did meet with, I mean, do we want to submit recommendation that they enter into that letter of request, agreement, whatever city
I
knows?
don't know whether I'd say we want to recommend that they enter into it. I would give them the heads up that we are being sent the information to help construct a letter that we will be bringing to them soon as we can.
Or do we want to just send that template to them? I mean, we've already,
They gotta fill it out, correct?
yeah, they gotta fill it out and enter into it. We've already recommended the tie line with Hillsborough. This is just the next step. Maybe we just forward that letter, that template to the city administrator. They can put it on their agenda and it's just our, from us, it's just our recommendation. It's the next step to move.
Yeah.
I would say, once you have actually talked to the city administrator and got her, yeah, I'm okay with doing this.
Okay.
Because there seemed to be a whole lot of ins and outs to that letter that need to be addressed. And with her experience, she may be prepared for it. She may need some assistance.
I will, once I get that, I'll meet with her and give that to her. But
But as a body of, yeah.
as the committee, it's the next step to move forward with Hillsborough, or to even look. That makes sense.
It does. I mean, I kind of just want direction if we're thinking emergency hardship, or are we thinking 100% full-time? Before we step into that meeting and discuss this with her, because I want there to be like a real sense of direction, which way we want to go.
Can I add some information to that, as far as City of Hillsborough is concerned? I know somebody who lives or who has property in Cold Orchard. For about 15 years, there are 21 residents in Cold Orchard that have tried to tie into the Hillsborough water line. 15 years. They just recently built 5,000 new homes. That's in Hillsborough, in the city of Hillsborough. And they are in the plans of another 10,000. And they have absolutely no intentions of allowing any more residents in the city of Cove Orchard to tie into their water because of the fact of all of the development that's going on in the city of Hillsborough. So when they were talking about that today and saying, is this for emergency purposes only? That's where I figured that that's what they're looking at, because they're not, like I say, Cove Orchard's already tied into them.
You know, they're not tied into, they are tied into Hillsborough, but they're tied in, they buy their water from Gaston.
Through Gaston, but Gaston's with Hillsborough.
And Gaston's with Hillsborough, and I don't know what their capacity is in Gaston is. That might be the restricting factor for Cove Orchard is,
It might be line size.
it is probably line size, because there's only a 4-inch line
Right.
that feeds. And so the water district would probably have to upgrade that line from Cove Orchard to Gaston.
Right,
And then depending on what Gaston's connection is to Hillsborough, it could be that Gaston would have to do some upgrades.
it's just something to keep in the back of your mind,
And-
that's all I'm saying.
And to kind of bring you up to speed, I don't know if you're aware that the city of Hillsborough and that joint water commission now has water rights off the Willamette. And they have started building a 62-inch pipeline from Wilsonville to Beaverton for that new water supply. So that joint water commission has acquired water rights off the Willamette. City of McMinnville also acquired some water rights off the Willamette. There's some major big companies that used to draw water off the Willamette that now do not draw water because they closed down, they're not in business. And so these water providers, utilities, has been able to acquire those water rights. And the Joint Water Commission with Hillsborough, Beaverton, and all those acquired some major water rights off the Willamette River. And they've building a big pump station there, and they're starting, it's under construction now, different phases of the 62-inch water line coming up 217 from Wilsonville. The water we're looking at getting would be coming out of the Barney Reservoir. So they have the Barney, they have Fern Hill, and a couple others.
So
Well-
to get back to this question, whether you want emergency or a continuous intertie. I mean, I personally would go with the cheapest thing.
Even on the template, they said we don't have to specify.
Yeah, we don't have
to.
Facility value.
We don't have to specify yet.
I think we're a ways from making that kind of a decision. I mean, in all reality, I mean.
I think we need to fine tune our stuff. We need to fine tune our rates a little bit better and look at that. I mean, you put a $10 million pipeline in from Hillsborough, you're gonna have to look at that cost. That's gonna affect your rates and how you run that. The only nice thing is if it's flowing a little bit all the time, you don't have to flush it. If your plant goes down for any reason, you still got water coming. And the question I throw out there too, they've talked about another reservoir, supposedly for fire flow. If you're tied into Hillsborough and you've got water coming that way, does that work as another reservoir? Do you need?
Because if that line breaks between the tie-in and the reservoir, then.
Well, you got the same problem if your line breaks between the reservoir and here or the water treatment plant, but
But it does not constitute another reservoir.
So if we get an intertie, it don't have to add another. Is that what you're saying?
well, does that move that reservoir from, right now it's on a critical, they're saying it's critical, kind of a high priority. Does that lessen the priority? Yeah, we need to replace the old reservoir up there. I mean, that old concrete reservoir is not up to seismic, but again, if we watch the seismic grants, do we work at having that ready for a seismic grant and replace that reservoir on a seismic grant, and at that time possibly upgrade it? So, I don't know if this seismic, I know there's different seismic grants out there, and I haven't dove into utility ones per se.
But as far as the master plan goes,
The master plan
if you
calls
get
for.
entertained, you get like. you need more reservoir capacity. Yes.
You will,
I would think so.
you will.
It would be more comfortable to have.
Yeah, it'd be more, it would be better and,
So they give you more time to actually implement it in a cost-effective manner.
yeah,
Couple of my concerns with the continuous versus emergent is a continuous use, you're gonna get some return on your investment in a shorter period of time than to spend a bunch of money on a pipe that you're only gonna use in a worst-case scenario.
Which could be 20 years.
But and as an emergency user, you're still gonna be dependent upon Turner Creek, which means any other growth to Yam Hill would still be tied to the Turner Creek limitations. As a continuous user, we would have a more robust supply of water available to us, which would then alleviate some of the issues surrounding any further development. And you can focus on something more like the wastewater system rather than continually worrying about getting more water.
well, and then also, do you, at that point, when you tie into Hillsborough, depending on what we're allowed to purchase through them, does that allow you to increase the users on your outside water districts to help pay
the costs.
the
I
cost?
could probably add 4 or 5 people in a heartbeat.
Because the more payers paying into the pot, the less our price goes down.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and if you had that continuous water supply, they could maybe open up some of the outside water users. Because I know we have a waiting list on ours and
And it would also free up Jason and Kyle when they have maintenance to do with the plant, that they could be a little more flexible.
Yeah, I mean, if for any reason the plant needs to go offline,
Yeah.
and that would be something, if we did direct the impound,
Like Carlton.
like Carlton, you could take our plant offline, still have water and do
dredging.
the dredging. That it's a redundant source.
In my mind, the continuous user gives a whole lot more flexibility going out 20 to 40 years out.
Yeah, the only thing that's, I mean, just food for thought, the thing that scares me the most is, I know everybody knows this, but we are kind of at their mercy with rate hikes and things of that nature. So I don't know if, like, with the emergency aspect of it, is it just a fixed rate?
You know, I fluctuate, I would assume the same as everything else.
That's why I'm wondering, does that, like Kathy just said, does that fluctuate with their rates, or,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's gonna kind of.
When she said the rates were higher
for
for
emergency,
emergency than it is for continuous use.
continuous
So
flow,
there you go. I mean, that's.
you get a better rate on continuous, because then they can budget and plan a little bit better.
Yeah,
Um,
and you got 57 homes that are waiting to be developed. I can't imagine with our growth here in the last 4 or 5 years that there's not gonna be another 57 homes on top of this 57 homes and another 57 after that. I mean, there is growth in this area and there is land available to build.
Well, if you bring in any light industry, you don't have the water flow that you need. Had Fruit Hill been running this summer, it would have been a major disaster, and that's light industry.
Yep.
That whole east side of town's light industry. And if they ever build there, and depending on what they build, your water requirements will be way up there. And so
having that resource.
I think, we've got to start looking for the future. We need to develop a 20-year plan, and yeah, we're probably 10 years out on doing this, depending on, and it might be a thing that we get everything in line and some grant opens up that funds 75% of it, and but it's having everything in order so that we're prepared.
And most successful grants, as Brian has schooled us on in previous meetings, is about having your ducks in a row ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, I can sure see spending $20 million for water as compared to a new city hall and, what was it that they wanted in addition when they were thinking about buying Vitos?
Yeah, that was, we were good at New City Hall, they were.
New city hall, yeah. But
So
there
I
was
mean, that
another-
property was 250, I don't know what it sold for, but 270,
Yeah.
I
Can
mean.
you have an office on that piece of property now, Brian?
There's certain things they can and can't do. You can't have,
Is this water related?
any overnight stuff.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
Good
We'll fin- So we'll finish up here. Any public comment before we adjourn?
Yeah, Carol's got her hand up.
Yeah, Carol.
Carol, are you there?
I'll click on her and ask her to mute. Carol?
Is it you on or not?
We had this problem last time.
Yeah.
I think it's on her phone or computer.
Well, we might have bored her stiff and she fell asleep.
Carol, you should be unmuted.
Something she must be doing if she's having a problem all the time.
Carol? Do we have chat on there at all? Do we have chat? Can you put something in chat?
Yeah, let's do that.
Carol? Carol, we can't hear you for some reason. Okay.
Carol. Unmute your phone.
Carol?
We hear you, I think.
I heard a call.
Unmute your phone, Carol.
She just,
Oh, she's gone.
she's gone. Any other public comment before we adjourn? Right, thanks committee, motion to adjourn,
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
Thanks, everybody.
No, she's there, she's back.
She's gone again. Sorry, Carol.